So how do you get everybody back in it's a choreographed art, but it's really about being engaging and finding topics that everybody can relate to or is invested in knowing the response to. Maybe you don't even need to worry about the field verification because you're just gonna rip it out at the end of the day. So it's really understanding the full scope, like why are we changing from a lab to like what is the purpose of this renovation so that you can ask very graded questions. 80% of the design phase is the same on every single project, and there's a 10% that is very specific to that project type or that market sector. You want to nail the 90% every single time, and you weave in the other 10.
Hi, folks. A quick one before we dive into this week's episode. Our book, The Critical Path Career: How to Advance in Construction and Planning and Scheduling, is out now, and you can order it on Amazon. We'll include a link below. This is a great way to show support for the Beyond Deadlines podcast, and Greg and I have worked extremely hard taking everything we know in our 30 years of experience, plus everything we've picked up from shooting this podcast, and we've tried to pack it into an information-dense book that you can use right away. In the book, we have specific strategies on how to get a raise, how to get a promotion, and find a new job. We include 26 of the best interview questions that we have come across, in addition to 34 specific impact ideas that you can go use on your projects today. We want to thank everyone who's shown us support so far and enjoy this week's episode. Welcome to the Beyond Deadlines podcast, where we tackle challenges that planning and schedule leaders come across on a day-to-day basis. My name is Micah Pipo, and I'm the CEO of Movar, a project management consultancy.
And I'm Heather Bemis, a registered architect and founder and CEO of Swap Integration and Swap PM.
This episode, we are going to dive straight into scope creep. And in this case, it's probably going to be more like a scope explosion. So Heather, you're working on a lab renovation project that quickly expanded to redoing the entire facility. How do you tackle it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've run into this a couple of different times, but it might be you and one of your teammates sitting side by side working through the details of a small renovation project. And then when it full turns into a full-blown building renovation gut and redo, how do you pivot within your project team? You now have to double in size or triple in size, and you're expanding to consultants that were engaged before. It just really turns into a recipe for disaster when it comes to communication and handoffs for coordination. So really what I would do there is gather up all the troops, get everybody in the same room, and have a big conversation about, okay, so we went from this to this. Let's identify what our potential hurdles or roadblocks could be in this process. What do we have for our new milestones? Because it's shifted from a small package to a full building, probably have more formal milestones to deliver. And there's a lot of other intricacies that we need to talk through as far as like timing of permitting and reviews and owner sign-offs, because there's a lot more stakeholders engaged now.
Yeah, retrofits are wild to me because when you go do a greenfield project, it's very cookie cutter and there's not a lot of surprises. Maybe you find something in the ground, typically not. With retrofits, you have now a whole building that has all these other things that you get to find and discover. So when you go into that meeting and you start kind of looking at how this is going to change and morph, how do you really start to account for everything that is already there in the building? You know, a lab's going to have different sorts of utilities and, you know, you might find a pipe where you're like, we don't know what this pipe is or it goes for. How do you start to try to tease that out in those initial conversations?
Well, a lot of times, if you don't know what that pipe is for, the users may not know either. And so it's really getting the existing drawings from the facility manager or whoever may have those existing drawings and try to trace it back, or doing a really detailed in-depth field verification and breaking it all down. So yeah, there's a lot of questions that come up because they might be introducing new utilities or new systems that need to retrofit those pipes, even eliminates it. Maybe you don't even need to worry about the field verification because you're just gonna rip it out at the end of the day. So it's really understanding the full scope. Like, why are we changing from a lab to, like, what is the purpose of this renovation? So that you can ask very graded questions to pull all of that right information out. But the
Yeah,
stakeholders don't know what they don't know, and they need the architect's help to get there.
yeah. Let's say in this hypothetical, where we switched it to kind of be able to walk through it a bit more. Let's say the reason why it switched is because the facility is going to be used for a completely different purpose. Let's say it went from a warehouse to, we're expanding in size, and now we're going to turn this warehouse, which had a lab in it, into an entire, clean room space. Let's do something like that in this hypothetical. So
Okay.
walk me through now, because there's going to be, and I love jumping forward and backwards because it's like, talk to me about pipes that exist. But now let's jump backwards. It seems to me that there's going to be like an immediate rocket ship up in team growth and processes and understanding. And so you have that understanding of why you're doing it. You're building a kind of a big clean room space. But how do you handle then those next sections of growth to deliver this project on time?
Right. So first you need to understand the scope and what everything is going into this project. And then you have set milestones or phases, milestones, deliverables. In our service, we like to call them boulders, rocks, pebbles, and sand. So boulders are the phases, rocks are those milestones or intermediate milestones to help you hit a deliverable. Pebbles are interdisciplinary coordination between two or more disciplines. And then the sand is internal only task, like that I as an architect would be completing or you as a contractor would be completing. And so what I really like to do is once we've gotten that information or understand the scope, begin to a swap meet or a planning session where we identify what that milestone is. What does done look like? What is expected as part of this deliverable? What will this deliverable be used for? Is it going to be priced? Is the owner going to review it? Are you getting sign off from the owner as part of this deliverable? And then working from that point backwards and understanding what every single team on the project is responsible for in order to hit what done looks like. And so in this planning session, it's a great meeting of the minds. You get everybody in the same room. This is where mechanical can ask questions about that pipe that is hanging out there that you may not know what it's for. Electrical can ask really specific questions around what are our emergency loads or how many dedicated circuits are we going to require as part of this space. And the architect is bringing back information that they've gathered from the owner, sharing it with the team if they haven't already, and using this as creating a roadmap to success, to hitting this milestone that meets every expectation of the design team and of the owner and stakeholder group.
I love that analogy. Let me see if I can screw it up. Boulders, rocks, pebbles, and sand.
Yeah, just keep writing it down.
Perfect. I've been a part of countless of these sessions, and I've also hosted a few of these myself. They're brilliant, and they're the perfect way to kick off a project and get everyone aligned. How do you keep, though, maintaining the right focus during the conversation? Because oftentimes when I've done some of these, you can either spin out on details that aren't yet available, you know, or you don't get the right sort of engagement for the right people because they just want to get in the room and get out of it. So, can you walk me through some of the tactics or strategy to have to really nail that sort of workshop?
Yeah, that's a great question, and a lot of facilitators struggle with something like this, but we've implemented what we call like rules of engagement for this project or for this planning session. And it's all about being respectful of other people's time, having the right conversations at the right time. And if you're not engaged, be respectful enough to step out of the space to take a phone call or have a side conversation and then come back and share your results as opposed to hijacking the whole conversation. So some of the tactics that we use is we have a parking lot where we identify like, hey, this has gone more than about 30 seconds to really get to a solution that
30
we
seconds
can,
is 30 seconds. I like that. I like sometimes it's
yeah,
like, hey, we're beating this horse dead for about 12 minutes now.
yeah, it's like let's put a pin in that. Let's put it in the parking lot. You guys can chew on it over lunch, and then we can come back. And if it's fruitful to introduce into the conversation, we can readdress it before we wrap today. But 30 seconds to a minute is about a rule of thumb that I give people to have a tangent before bringing them back in because you don't want them to get too far. And then to your point, you lose focus. Like once it's gone too far, you can just see all of the eyes in the room, flip open a laptop, open up their email and dive in, and then they're lost. So how do you get everybody back in is it's a choreographed art, but it's really about being engaging and finding topics that everybody can relate to or is invested in knowing the response to.
That's really great. Interested in and engaged in. So let's say you hold the workshop, you nail it, and everyone loves it, leaves it. You have your milestones all mapped out. You have some predecessors and successors to them. That's super great. Now it's day two, and life continues. Walk me through how that kind of stays as a living process that's helping to drive the project and how you maintain that momentum post workshop.
I love that question, Mike, because that is usually where planning goes to die. Day two. You leave that session, and if you're doing sticky notes on the wall, a gust of wind comes through, and now they're all on the floor, and you're like, man, that was a very kumbaya moment yesterday. And now what? Or you're on day seven, and the five tasks that you were responsible for last week didn't get done. And so you're like, meh, I'll just I'll just catch it up next week. We do it different at Swap, and I think this is really valuable for every other team to start to implement into their process. But we do the concept of weekly check-ins every single week. And so let's say we had our planning session last Wednesday and we have recurring meetings on Wednesday. The following Wednesday, we will do a look back on the previous week of work. And we have all hands at these meetings. So every single person who was part of the planning joins this call for 30 minutes. We like it to be very efficient, to be respectful of everybody's time. But we look back on the previous week of work, starting with critical path items. Were all of these completed? If they weren't, why not? And if they move, how does that impact the milestone? And then we go lane by lane. Every single team on the project responds to whether or not they completed their work. If they weren't completed, understanding why and how it impacts the other disciplines or impacts the project as a whole. And then once we've done the look back or reconciled the project, we do a 2 week forecast or a look ahead of what everybody is responsible for, making sure they have what they need to be successful, and highlighting any new scope or additional action items that we need to consider that maybe weren't known at the planning session. So we keep it as a living, breathing schedule. Um, there's different ways to do this. Some people use a Miro whiteboard. Some people use a large scale formatted PDF. Some people use an Excel spreadsheet. But we have a platform, SWAT PM, that does this in real to allow people to track their. You go to a website to see it.
No, that's perfect. And we're going to talk more about that a little bit later in the show. But I got a question that came to mind as we're talking about it. Do you ever do, additional sessions that are similar to that kickoff session? Because I just kind of imagine a lot of times you get going so far in the future, and especially on retrofits where there's always fun and surprises waiting for you around or inside that next wall. Do you ever then have those, and then what's kind of your either loose or hard, this is the things that I notice, for us to then have another session to bring it back in to then kind of realign it?
Well, we actually follow a very structured process in how we facilitate and manage the design phase of a project. But we start with a visioning kickoff where we talk about boulders and rocks. So those phases and milestones. And then we get into a phase milestone. So let's say design development. We look at the whole phase. Let's call it a 16-week design development phase. We talk about what is required for this entire phase, what are handoffs that need to happen, what approvals, all of that stuff. And then we do our detailed planning 6 to 8 weeks at a time because it's really challenging for people to think beyond 2 months when they're thinking about work that they're responsible for. So
Months is
once,
generous. Give me like a
right,
week.
4 weeks. Yeah, yeah.
4 weeks is generous. Come on, Heather. I'm like, what's going on next week in my life?
Well, so our detailed planning is 6 to 8 weeks just to kind of carve it up. So if you've got a 16-week DD phase, we'd set an intermediate rock or milestone at 50%. And what does 50% mean? And detailed that 6 to 8 weeks, who's doing what when. At the end of that 6 to 8 weeks that we've successfully managed all the way through, we have another follow-up planning to plan the next 6 to 8 weeks. And once you hit that DD milestone, then we start over and do CDs. You get into construction documents. Maybe it's a 24 phase and you split it into thirds, and then we plan it in chunks while considering the entire phase and the entire project while you're planning, just to make sure that you're not falling behind on anything.
That makes a ton of sense. So, let's say you're going through this project and everyone's playing nicely except for like one subcontractor, and they have a thorn in their boot per se, because they're a little bit behind, and they are saying, hey, you didn't give us the package in time for us to get the work done in time, and now we're late and we're going to file a TIA. It's going to go to contractors and arbitrators, blah 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 blah. Walk us through how in those scenarios you start to work and engage with those stakeholders to kind of bring them back in and move things forward.
I mean, that's not uncommon that we have a consultant or a design team consultant who either doesn't want to have to participate, knows their own workflow path, um, or doesn't want to be told what to do, right? And we're not there to tell them what to do. What we're trying to do is how can this team help you be successful? And if you need drawings 3 weeks before a milestone so that you can coordinate everything and get it all buttoned up to have clear, well coordinated drawings at that milestone, it's your responsibility to call that out. And so if you don't ask for that, and I'm not leading the conversation because I know that that's what you need and I can prompt you for it, it's really kind of you get what out of it, what you put into it. And so it's really like, hey, Mr. Engineer, not picking on engineers, but kind of picking on engineers. Hey, Mr. Engineer.
None of them are listening, so pick away. This is all planners and schedulers. All planners and schedulers are like, yeah, down with the engineers.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Engineer, I think it would be helpful for you if you received architectural's final model, at least 2 weeks before the deadline. Would you agree with that? And it's really just asking them targeted questions to see how they respond. And they're like, oh, I can do it within a week, or I'll get it when they give it to me. Well, if you say that, I'll get it when they get it to me, you're setting yourself up for failure because they may not give it to you until the day before. And so if you lose them at that point, they will realize very quickly during the weekly management calls that they should have requested more and engaged more. And by the time you have the next planning session, they show up differently.
I like how you gave them a little bit of rope and leeway there, and how you proposed your question. Like, do you
Right.
need 2 weeks? Bringing them kind of into the fold. That's super. I just like how you played that out, and you kind of brought them in instead of try to keep something controversial, or
Yeah.
do this for me or do that for me. And I really liked that approach.
Yeah, because you want the buy-in because ultimately it's a commitment of work at the end of the day, and they need to commit to doing their work with what they're given. Um, Also, that line of questioning opens you up for some really good negotiation. So if if I say, could you do it in 2 weeks? And they're like, well, we need 4, we need 6. It's like, well, let's take a look. Architect, can you deliver it 6 weeks early? Likely not, because you then it's like a ripple effect of what you need from the stakeholders, what you need from everybody else to get what mechanical you need 6 weeks early. But then you're like, how about 3 or 2.5? Would that give you enough time to truly be successful if they can give you this piece 5 weeks early and the rest of it 2.5 weeks early? So it really like, what do you truly need? So giving them that space to express their expectations while then turning it back around and negotiating it with everybody else in the room. What is truly attainable? And let's plan for reality, not be dreamers, right? Let's be realistic.
Yeah, I mean the person who picked the end date of the project, that project director, he's a dreamer. He's like, get this done in
He's
12
a
months.
dreamer.
It's a 20-month project. The people delivering got to be the realistic ones.
He's the
Okay, so
dreamer, but the design team were also dreamers when they said they could do it within that time, right? When they
yeah,
responded to the RFP. And so you got to take that dream and then how do you actually make it happen?
a lot of optimism bias. A lot of optimism bias. Well, okay, so let's say this project, was wrapped up, and hypothetically, this building was next to another building, and they were like,
Mhm.
"All right, Heather, we're just going to go round two on the next one." What are some of your best strategies for taking like what was good and worked, and then rolling it over to another team? That in construction, it's kind of interesting. Sometimes you have similar teams, and sometimes you have all brand new teams based on just how companies are operating. So what are some of those strategies that you poured over from project to project that, will take more specifically what was going on in the project, not just your hierarchy, your tactics and strategies that you use in each project, but just how do you grab those project specifics that were really good and useful and then get them to work on that next project?
As far as like time frames from like for handoffs or because what I'm thinking of when you ask this question, it comes down more to consistency and the conversations that are happening at a specific time and who's engaged in those and how information is dispersed. So it really comes down to like your BIM execution plan that you might establish on the first one, and as well as rules of engagement of how this team works together. If you The best part of using a structured planning system like SWAP or using a platform like SWAP is next one up. It's like you've got a football team and somebody get injured, next one up. But they're already ready to jump in and all of the protocols are right there ready for them. You just switch out the name. It's like, okay, here are your expectations. They're mapped out for you. Next man up. And so I see that as being true if you establish really good consistent practices on that first project. It doesn't matter if it's the same architect, same engineer, same structural, same whatever. It doesn't matter if they're the same, but if you have really good, consistent, well mapped out practices on the first project, you just roll it right into the second one. 90% of the design phase is the same on every single project, and there's a 10% that is very specific to that project type or that market sector. You want to nail the 90% every single time and you weave in the other 10.
Absolutely. Absolutely love that. Well, I want to give you some time. Why don't you tell the audience where they can find you and a little bit more about this SWAT, the software that you have that helps optimize planning on the front end?
Yeah, so we've got a services and a platform that we've rolled out. So our services are SWAP integration, SWAP integration.com, and our platform is SWAP PM, SWAP we offer a 14-day free trial of the platform. So you can go in there, set up your company, create a project, follow the easy, intuitive workflows to get you to a grid, to a project where you can start managing your own product yourself. But our service implements the platform in every project that we're a part of. And so if you use our services on a project. You're really getting free training and guided assistance all the way through the platform to help you be more successful for your next project that you're going to build out in there yourself. Our services are also offered a la carte. So we facilitate big picture planning sessions. We facilitate phase and milestone planning sessions. And we also do weekly check-ins or weekly management of your project. And our team also offers milestone peer reviews, which is very valuable in the sense that we look at that most recently delivered milestone, that set of drawings, do a coordination review of it, and then we give you a top 10 that can be implemented in the platform and managed for compliance or completeness as you move through. These services can be one-off or full service while you get the platform alongside of it. So yeah, check us out at swapintegration.com or swappm.com. We're active on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram.
Before we take off, I just wanted to share a quick video Heather shared with us on Swap PM. It's a must watch.
The design phase shouldn't feel like a slow sink into quicksand, but too often it does. Coordination breakdowns, missed handoffs, last-minute chaos. Sound familiar? We call it the design doom cycle, and it's killing your milestones. But it doesn't have to be this way. Enter Swap PM, your rescue rope for the design phase. Inside Swap PM, you can call out dependencies with powerful linking tools that help teams spot bottlenecks before they become roadblocks. Mark critical path tasks to spotlight what's truly time-sensitive and keep projects on track. You can also create tasks, assign ownership, set deadlines, and link them across teams, all in just a few clicks. Plus, zoom in or out with flexible views, from daily details to big picture planning. Also toggle between yearly, semi-annual, quarterly, and monthly views, and zoom in or out to align day-to-day execution with long-term vision, all in one place. Created by architects for architects, teams using Swap PM report up to 50% fewer RFIs caused by coordination gaps, hundreds and thousands of dollars saved in rework-related costs, and major decisions made weeks faster thanks to streamlined communication. Because when your tool understands the design process, everything clicks. Want to give your team the calm and clarity they deserve? Try Swap PM now.